Okay, so we are online. Welcome in week 6. What we'll do today, we'll kind of refresh what we remember from previous labs in terms of building UI. And then I will show you very basic things about navigation, right? How you can turn your single screen application into an application with the navigation, right? So what we'll create a simple app with input and output. So we recall our actions in terms of adding handlers for buttons, adding inputs, right? So outlets and actions. And then we'll add another button that will trigger the navigation to another screen, right? So let's create our Xcode project. And I will start with a single view application because I want to show you step by step the elements that you need. Right? Later on, when you know that you will need some navigation and you have an idea what kind of pattern you will use, you can use either master detail or page-based application or tabbed application, right? One of those will give you all the controllers kind of out of the box, right? But we'll start today with a single view application. So let's say we'll convert units, right? Unit calculator. Okay. And let's create our application. Here we are. So let's start with the main storyboard. Just making sure that you can see the top of the screen. Okay, let's start with the main storyboard. And let's build our user interface. Okay, what do we need for our application? I'll need some text fields. I'll have one. I'll need some labels. Right, this one will show me output, but also I will need label that will tell me what's the input. Right, let's make those labels bigger. And let's add a button. And this button will trigger the calculation, maybe a little bit smaller. So let's say, to start with, we'll start converting between the inches and centimeters. Right. So this label should be formatted in a different way. We want this to be aligned like that. 0. This one, text will be 0, and text will be aligned here. That should be nice, right? We can make this font bigger. That's my application. A simple idea. Then we can add more functionality to it, right? Let's think about logic, right? So what I will do, I will open the assistant editor. I'm going to split the screen. I will hide this. I will hide this panel. And I will have to create my references, right? So my outlets. And also I will have to create action for my button. I will start with outlets. So I select the input box, dragging it to the class. Remember that it has to be inside the class, but outside of any function there, right? It's outlet. I'll call it result. It's UI text field. And connect. Here it is. Make more space. I will drag this label as well. Where I made a mistake. This shouldn't be the result. Right? So let's fix the mistake. Sorry, guys. I will remove this reference. I will remove this, and I will create it one more time. So this should be input, right? Input, and this one is result. Now it's correct. Right, so I have reference to this one, I have reference to this one, and I have a button. And button will have action convert. Will be action, right? In this case, I don't really need an argument, right? I don't need the argument. I won't be doing anything with the button, right? Won't be changing its state or label or color or anything like that. Right? I don't even need it to recognize where is it coming from. I just need to trigger the operation, right? So what do I need to do here? Any ideas? I want to convert from inches to centimeters.
First of all, we have to read what is inside the inputs.
Correct.
We have to convert that to inches.
Mm-hmm.
And then from inches, we have to convert to centimeters. And show that in the output.
So first, I will have a string input, right? From the input, right? Text. I didn't switch the context, as you can guess. Wrong language, right? Wrong syntax. So I need to grab the text, right? And then I need to convert it, right? So let's call it in value will be equal to, let's say, float, right? That is created based on sin. We will need exclamation mark here, and we'll need exclamation mark here. Because what text is returning is an optional. And then we may have an input that is incorrect and it won't parse correctly, right, to the float. So we need exclamation mark as well there, right?
Exactly.
2 exclamation marks, one inside the bracket and the other one outside. And they're saying that this can be let. And I agree with that. This can be let as well, because we don't mutate that, right? We set the value and we don't change it. What else they say? It's never used. We'll use it in a second, right? So no worries. Now, we need to calculate the out value. That's the usual issue. How much is it? Right?
2.4.
Yeah, that's more or less what we should use, right? So we should get the in value, and we should multiply it by more or less 2.54, right? We could store this as a constant, right? Now, the next step will be setting up the output, right? So we need to get the result label text, and it will be equal to string out value. Okay. So we have this. Let's test our solution. Let's see if it works. We have basic functionality. Okay. Now, what I want to do, as I will switch to the to my normal view. What I want to do, I want to change this application. I want to have screen before this one that will allow me to select a unit that I want to convert, the type of the conversion, right? Of course, we could do it smarter, right, with some, you know, boxes here allowing us to check the or select the specific unit, right, or specific type of conversion. But let's do it in a very old school way, right? So first, you select the type of the conversion. You go to the specific controller that knows how to do it, right? How do we do that? First, I will have to add, I'll make this smaller. I will have to add a new controller. This new controller is a navigation controller. This one. I'll grab this guy and take a look what happens when I drag it to the storyboard. It adds two components. One is a navigation controller. Second one is a tab view that is used as a screen, right? So I have two new elements. Navigation controller is what it is, right? You can see that it's adding the navigation bar at the top. And this one is marked as a root view. You see that there is this connection here, the segue. And if we take a look at the information about this segue, we see where is it from, where is it leading to. Here, right, in identity, right, basic information. What we want to do, we want to work a little bit with this table view. And today, our table will be very static. We'll hard code all the rows, right? So first, we'll select the table view, and we'll say that the content, see, I'm in the attribute inspector, and I will change the content type from dynamic prototypes to static cells. It changes automatically how this looks in my storyboard, right? I have 3 rows. Now I can go into each row and I can modify each of it. I can change how it looks. I can add new components to this row. For example, I can add labels. Big label saying that we'll convert inches to centimeters, right? Or simply cm, in to cm for short, right? We can have another one here. And we can say that this will convert cm to inches. And so on, right? We can add more as we need. Okay? But right now, if I run my application, what happens? Well, nothing happens because this one is still the entry point, right? The arrow points to here. I can take this arrow, this one. I can take this arrow and I can move it. I can drop it to the navigation controller. Now, another thing that I can do is I can grab the cell from this table that's the label, I think. But I can grab the cell and I can navigate, right? I can drag it. It's easier from the tree. I can navigate to this controller. And now I can select how my transition will happen. Right? So I will say show. I run my application, my initial view changes, right? I see a different different view. In this case, I see my table. Right? I can move it. If I tap on the first row, I end up in my calculator. If I tap the second row, well, nothing happens. Right? So I have the first step. I have navigation controller. I can see that I should fix a little bit my UI, right? I should move those. elements. I can select all of them and move them downstairs below the bar. All right. Let's see. Now it looks better. Not very interesting, but it looks better. Now, we want to have similar screens for other conversions, right? I can I can duplicate this, right? I can create another screen like that, but I have to add it from here, right? Controller. What I want to add another screen to my application. So what it really is, it is a view controller. Here it is. Right, and to this view controller, I will come from this view and show. And in this case, I have two arrows leading to different places in my application, right? My storyboard starts looking like your mock-ups in the capstone project, right? When you see transitions between screens, right? If you use Balsamiq or you use other tools, that's more or less what you do, right? In storyboard, you kind of do the same thing, right? Those transitions, which is segues, can have identifiers. So I can say that this one will be int to centimeters, and this one will be centimeters to inches, right? Why it's important? It's important because when the transition happens and we want to do something, we want to pass some information to the next screen, this identifier can be used to really know which transition was triggered if you have more than one. Because there is only one function that you can do it. There is only one function that can handle the transition, right? And the communication between two controllers. And this function is triggered for all segues, right? So you need to have ID of the segue to be able to find out where you're going, right, and what you need. You can repeat the same operation in terms of creating the UI for this controller. What's important right now? If you click on the yellow bubble here, right, you click on the controller, and you click on the this ID, which is the identity inspector. In a class for this one, for the one that we just added, you see UI view controller as the class that is implementing it. While for this one, you see your view controller. This is the class that you have in your project. What do we need to do to change this? Because we want this one also to have implementation in our project. We have to add new class. All right, so I will go to File, New. I want to create a new file. And the type of the file will be CocoaTouch class. Next, I will call this class, it will be centimeters to inches, right? TM converter controller. It will be a subclass of UI view controller, and that's important. This will make sure that we have all the headers that we need. It's a Swift file. Next, we add it to the unit calculator, right next to the view controller that we have. Here it is, right? What happened automatically, because I selected the parent class, UI view controller, automatically I have two functions that I have in all controllers. View did load and did receive memory warning. I have also some code that is right now, sorry, as you can see, it's commented out. And this is the function that is used for navigation, right? It's a function that you can override, and you can implement your own behaviors there. Right now, we just need this. Okay, so I have a class. I have my storyboard with the window, right, with this view that needs connection to the brain. And we create this connection to the brain by clicking on the controller, either here or here, going to the identity inspector, and in class, you simply have to type in the name of the class, so CM converter controller. I think it added also the view controller to the name automatically. I didn't notice that. Doesn't matter, right? This name of the class should be the same as this name here. Right? This name and this name and this name are the same. It creates the connection. A good way to test it is, as I did right now, is to click on this controller in the storyboard and enable the assistant editor. If this is configured incorrectly, let me show you what happens. This automatically jumps into the UI view controller, and you cannot edit this code, right? This code, I cannot type here. I'm trying, but nothing works, right? If you have a situation like that, it means that your view is connected to the default implementation, and you cannot change the default implementation because it's coming from the library, right? So CM right? If you want to create more views like that, you repeat this that many times, right? As many times as you need. Complex? Well, you should try to do it right now.
Sorry to I'm comparing with Android, but in this case, this one considered as the activity controller or view?
I would say the controller, because this is the implementation, right? The view itself, I mean, the storyboard as it is right now here is just a graphical expression of your UI, right? Plus a little bit of functionality, because those segues create the functionality, right? But the controller that you implement here is more like activity in Android, right? You even have similar steps, right? You have view did load, you had on create in Android. You do similar things in these two functions, right? Did receive memory warning, you have a similar function in Android that is reacting to the operating system request to release some data, right? In Android, you had functions that were triggered when, on the button click. Here you have actions, right, that are also implemented in the controller, right? So that's the closest class to your activity. So what I want you to do right now, I want you to implement similar thing that we did here, right? Converting from inches to centimeters. I want you to convert centimeters to inches here. When you're done with that, the next step will be adding some other unit conversion, right? We still have one more cell here, and of course, if you want more, you can add more, right? So the next step would be adding new position here. So I don't know, pounds to kilograms or miles to kilometers, your choice, right? Add new position here, label, text, add new controller, and create the connection. Okay? I won't be going today deeper in terms of connections, right? I won't be going deeper in terms of what happens if you have multiple and you want to pass some information. Because right now we don't really need it, right? I want you to be familiar with those steps of adding new controllers to your application and extending the navigation, right? Next time, next step will be to work with segues, work with also with the table view that will be dynamically generated, because right now we have hard-coded information, right? So the next step will be modifying that and also passing information. So instead of hard-coding elements here, we'll say a user selected conversion from this to this, and since that's the selection, so you should use those units, right? We'll modify this application. And right now, I will stop the recording and I will help you around with your implementations because I want you to try this.